Yeah. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Continuing with the Tafsir of Surah A'raf, we are just going to recap with one of the verses from the last week's session and continue with this week's session. So verse 50 onwards. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. ونادى أصحاب النار أصحاب الجنة أن أفيضوا علينا من الماء أو مما رزقكم الله قالوا إن الله حرمهما على الكافرين. The inmates of the fire will call out to the inmates of paradise and say, pour on us some water or something of what Allah has provided you with. They will say, i.e. the people of paradise, Allah has indeed forbidden these two to the faithless. Now, just to recap on that particular verse, that the people on A'raf were looking on both sides, on the sides of the people of paradise and the side of the people of hell. And we gave it a form of interpretation as to what these could particularly be referring to. A group of people on A'raf with different statuses, or one type of people who are the lofty ones, or people whose fate was in the balance. But in any case, what is important to pick up on is that the people of paradise and people of hell are conversing with each other, and Allah uses the word nada to depict a certain form of distance. Yet, we do not see them shouting at each other. So there is a distance, and yet there is communication, which then definitely means either a form of technology or a multi-dimensional existence where people are different layers of existence, very close to each other and very much apart from each other. Now the people of hell say to the people of paradise, pour some water upon us or whatever Allah has provided you with. And the people of paradise, since Allah has already stated that He has taken away every malice from their hearts, they do not have scornful hearts. They do not have any hatred towards even the people of hell. They do not even have any dislike. So they will reply that Allah has made it prohibited upon the people of hell. What they are trying to say is to the people of hell is that it is physically impossible for whatever is in paradise to reach in hell. Had there been a possibility, we would not have prevented it from reaching to you. But even if we were to pour, it will never be able to reach you. But the people of hell, because they are so materially bound, cannot comprehend this. However, people of paradise, since all malice has been removed from them, all dirt has been removed from them, and all the material and animalistic weight has been removed from them, are in a finer dimension who can then comprehend these realities. What is interesting now is what follows in the next verse, the description of the people of hell. And Allah says, who are these? When the people of paradise say, "Inna Allah harramahuma al kafirin," Allah has made it prohibited, i.e. the water and the sustenance of paradise, upon the kafir, those who are deniers or faithless or unfaithful. Who are these? Now, not the people of paradise are not saying this. The people of paradise uttered the first statement that Allah has made it haram on the kafirin. The Quran is stating and defining who the kafirin are. الَّذِينَ اتَّخَذُوا دِينَهُمْ لَهْوًا وَلَعِبًا وَغَرَّتْهُمُ الْحَيَاةُ الدُّنْيَا فَالْيَوْمَ نَنْسَاكُمْ كَمَا نَسُوا لِقَاءَ يَوْمِهِمْ هَذَا وَمَا كَانُوا بِآيَاتِنَا يَجْحَدُونَ. Who are the faithless? Those who took their religion for diversion and play, and whom the life of the world had deceived. In fact, it is those people who did not give any form of seriousness to any finer level of existence within this world. They sufficed with the absolute animalistic self, but even with the animalistic self and the material self, they did not suffice with its pleasures. Because had they sufficed with its pleasures and yet had some reverence for the finer things that the humanity was yearning for, then they would not be classified as the kafir. Instead, these people are totally inclined towards the material self, to the extent that they take life and they take religion as play. So they demean religion, and religion is mocked at by them. So we can see here what we stated last week, that hell is an exception. Most of the people will go to paradise, only people who have really, really and truly been mindless and have forgotten any sense of righteousness go to the pit of hell. And this is then emphasized by whoever is stating this in this verse, whether it is the angels or God and angels or God and other agencies. فَالْيَوْمْ نَنْسَاهُمْ, today we will forget them as they forgot the meeting of this day and how they used to impugn on our and how they used to belie our signs and be obstinately averse to our signs. When the Quran says we have forgotten them, it does not mean that somebody deliberately fails to acknowledge somebody else with any malicious intent or intent to take revenge. It's not talking about it within that human context. It is more in the context of the existential understanding of forgetfulness. So the fact is not this, that the person, because in other verses we will find that the people will say that are there any intercessors that would intercede for us? And for example, somebody goes to somebody else who they have known in the world and they say, will you intercede for us? And he just ignores them. That is not what it means, I think. What it means is that on that day, those people will not be acknowledged existentially, i.e. their records will not be there with those lofty sort of authorities or anyone of any say on that day, or Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala who can intervene on that day, will have no record of these people, and even if they were to call out, their pleas would not be heard. And that makes sense within the existential scheme, that if there is a distinction of dimensions, and if there is a layer of dimension and veil of dimension, then these people are forgotten in the way that they are not acknowledged, i.e. they are not there to be acknowledged in the first place. So that they are there, but they are in such a dimension that they are not making any impact in the other dimension, and that particular dimension does not see them or recognize them or even perceives them. I think it would mean in that way, because Allah is saying, since they used to obstinately stand against our signs, this obstinately standing against the signs has brought about such a distance within them that today they are not acknowledged. Not that they are willfully not acknowledged, but that there is nothing to be acknowledged, as if there is two different languages being spoken. One is the language of the people of paradise that is heard by God, and the other one is the language of the people of hell that is unheard. وَلَقَدْ جِئْنَاهُمْ بِكِتَابٍ فَصَّلْنَاهُ عَلَى عِلْمٍ هُدًى وَرَحْمَةٍ لِقَوْمٍ يُؤْمِنُونَ. Certainly we have brought them a book which we have elaborated with knowledge as a guidance and mercy for people who have faith. Now this book is probably talking about the Quran. The Quran that explains that, look, O human beings, your reality is otherworldly. You are not of this world. You have a destiny and a purpose awaiting you. Contemplate on these verses. They are offering rational arguments. Once the rational arguments then convince your mind, then it's offering you invaluable insights into the nature of the world, the nature of God, the nature of life on earth, and the eschatology that awaits you. Now, what Allah is saying after that is, هَلْ يَنْظُرُونَ إِلَّا تَأْوِيلًا. Are they actually waiting for the interpretation of this book? What this means is, ta'wil, are they actually waiting for the fulfillment of what we are promising within the book? What happens here is that the interpretation ought to be that this world has series of events, causes and effects. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, look, the end goal is X, Y, and Z, and this is what will happen. That is the ta'wil, that is the existential reality that is going to unfold. Ta'wil means the absolute existential reality that will unfold, that nobody knows save Allah. So he's saying, now, we've given you the book, we are telling you what is up ahead, what is about to come, what you should be worried about, the caution that you should take. Now that you are not moving, God is asking, yes, in amazement, are you actually waiting for the fulfillment of what we are stating in this book, and you are not taking caution? In any case, يوم يأتي تأويله يقول الذين نسوه من قبل قد جاءت رسل ربنا بالحق فهل لنا من شفعاء فيشفعوا لنا. The people who have forgotten the last day, the people who had forgotten the last day. Now here, why is Allah saying who had forgotten? If they have forgotten, then that means the book is not only there as rational evidences to convince us of something that we do not know, but the book is there with rational evidences to awaken us to something that we have forgotten and we naturally ought to know. So this is what the verse is phrased as. The people who had forgotten it from before shall say, indeed, the messengers of our Lord came with the truth. Now, are there any intercessors who would intercede for us? It shows a very human type of a setting within the hereafter. And how can it be otherwise? It will be a human type of setting with human type of mentalities and human type of interaction. So in this world we see, okay, fine, I forgot this. I forgot this. I adamantly did not acknowledge this. Now, my option is that is there anyone here that I can go to who has any say or authority, who can then vouch for me or can intercede for me and compensate for the lack that I have brought with me and save me from damnation? It's a very human type of interaction, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about this again and again in the Quran, that Allah has all the intercession on the day of Qiyamah, or that Allah will not allow intercession. Nobody will be allowed to have intercession except after the consent of God. But it shows that these things are available on the day of Qiyamah, and this is exactly what the human will look for. Now, the other thing that they are saying is, these people, أو نُرَدُّ فَنَعْمَلْ غَيْرَ الَّذِي كُنَّا نَعْمَلْ, or that we are sent back and we can act contrary to what we have acted. So they know now that we had forgotten this was so obvious, and they were right, the messengers. Now there are two types of awakening the Quran describes on the day of Qiyamah. One is يَوْمَ يَتَذَكَّرَ الْإِنسَانِ, the day in which man will finally remember. And the other one is this, that indeed our messengers were saying the truth and we should have become mindful. So there are two types of mindfulness that are happening on the day of Qiyamah. One, either there are two types of groups, or both the groups going through the same awakening, or one group is going through two and one group is going through one. Regardless, the day on which human beings will finally remember. That is talking about the existential remembering. It does not mean remembering something that I've forgotten. It means becoming mindful of an obvious truth of which I was mindless and heedless of, but it was staring at me in my face and I was supposed to consider it and awaken through it, but I failed to. Of course it was this. It was always there. Why didn't I pay heed to it? That's one type of awakening. And the other type of awakening is what this verse is saying, that the people who say, what the messengers were saying was true. So it's not something that they themselves will awaken to and say, it was so obvious. They will say, no, what the messenger was saying was true, and they actually made sense. The arguments that they were posing were very rational arguments. We should have we should have concluded from those arguments that such an eschatology, end of day, ta'wil, awaits us, that all the events will transpire in this manner and come to this level of culmination. We should have been mindful of this. We should have actually worked it out. So there are two types of awakening. One is a very existential, intimate one, and the other one seems to be more rationally based, which is this one that we're discussing right now. Now, what happens here is that this world of ours, when we see it, it's a world that is the way it is and it isn't the way it is. And we need to explain this a little bit more in the verses that are going to come. But it is all interconnected. In any case, here, the verse says, قَدْ خَسِرُوا أَنفُسَهُمْ. They have certainly ruined their souls. Now here, there is a distinction between you and your soul. As if to say that the person is other than its soul. But that's not what it means. It actually means something else. That the human soul has two different levels of perception. One is active and one is passive. There is activity in which we act and there's passivity in which we receive. And activity and passivity can sometimes exist simultaneously. It is there that we can draw a distinction between me and myself. So when I do wrong, I say I'm doing wrong here. There is a level in which I analyze myself, and I, the analyzer, is one aspect, and I, the analyzed, is another aspect. So here, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying they have caused a loss to their souls. So it is as if they are other than their souls. What this means is that the human soul has the ability to discern, and the human soul is involuntarily, passively working along with whatever it desires. So here now, it seems that on the day of Qiyamah, we are responsible for our souls, in which the soul is responsible for itself. The passive part of the soul is being made and molded by the active part of the soul, in which then, if a person is damned, the whole soul is condemned, in which the soul is burning and the person is lamenting, why did I do this to myself? So we can see that dual aspect of the soul. And this is one of the secrets of spiritual wayfaring, that if we can ascend beyond ourselves and monitor ourselves and see ourselves as we see our children or be instructors for our students, then in that we can monitor and slowly and gradually direct our own soul, the passivity of the soul, towards its wholesome completion. وَضَلَّ عَنْهُمْ مَا كَانُوا يَفْتُرُونَ. And what they used to fabricate has forsaken them. Now it seems here that this part of the verse is actually alluding to the thing that people are always convincing themselves of what they are doing, but at the core of our being, the truth is quite evident and manifest. Whenever we are doing something wrong, it is there, and we have to convince the soul that this wrong is right. Otherwise, the right is the easiest option. I'm not going to go too much into it. The next verse is talking about creation and what we were talking about above. Inna rabbukum Allah alladhi khalaqa as-samawati wal arda fi sittati ayyam thumma istawa 'ala al-'arsh yughshi al-layl an-nahar yatlubuhu hasithan wash-shamsa wal-qamara wan-nujuma musakhkharatin bi-amri ala lahu al-khalqu wal-amr tabarakallah rabbul alamin. Indeed, your Lord is Allah who created the heavens and the earth in 6 days, and then settled on the throne. He draws the night's cover over the day, which pursues it swiftly. And He created the sun, the moon, and the stars, all of them disposed by His command. Look, all creation and command belongs to Him. Blessed is Allah, the Lord of the worlds. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala here is saying, your Lord. He's using a very particular term, your Lord. Lord is the nurturer, the one who brings us to completion. The name Rabb for Allah is most appropriate in terms of His relation with the world, because His relation with the world is the one who nurtures the world and brings it to completion. So your Lord is Allah. Inevitably, the sustenance that you're getting, the light that you're getting of the sun, the air that you get to breathe, the gravity that is there, the plants, every single thing is there. These are not from multiple lords. Your Lord is one, and He is Allah who has organized every single thing. Now, in order to rid the Meccans more than likely of their notion of multiple lordships and deities and gods, the story is going back to the creation of the earth. So if God has created the earth and has set it into a meticulous system that He would only be worthy of being the Lord, knowing all the mechanics and the dynamism of the earth. So your Lord is Allah, not lords apart from Allah. Who is He? The one who has created the heavens and the earth in 6 days. This verse did not make any sense to the Meccans. Indeed, it doesn't make any sense to us. It will make sense to the future human who will understand the which particular cosmic scale is being referred to here in terms of days. What is the meaning of day here in 6 days that God is so adamant? And look at the sequence. He created the heavens and the earth, not the earth and the heavens. In other verses we have, He said to the heavens and the earth, come, tawan aw karha, come willingly or by force. They said, we come willingly. Allah said He then fashioned the earth and created the heavens on top of the earth. Here He's saying He created the heavens and the earth. I do not believe that these are just changes in the way God speaks. I do feel He's talking about existential references here. He's talking about heavens and the earth. In any case, from here it appears that God is talking to a very different human, not me and you, to a futuristic human, about 6 days, which they will understand the meaning of 6 days, in which He fashioned the heavens and the earth. And whatever the reference here is, we cannot understand. What does it mean by heavens and the earth here at this point? As opposed to at other points when it says He's created the earth and then the heavens, which might be the atmospheric sort of layers of the earth. But in this point here, we don't understand the meaning of the heavens and the earth in this sequence. Neither do we understand the meaning of 6 days. In which cosmic sort of scale is He talking? But it makes sense in itself, and it will be unraveled. It's a scientific truth, a cosmic truth, which will be unraveled to the future human. In any case, ثُمَّ اسْتَوَىٰ عَلَى الْعَرْشِ, then He presided and settled over the throne. Now, if you look very carefully in the verse of the Quran, the throne is always talking of the authority of God and His ability to govern everything sharply and meticulously. So, ثُمَّ اسْتَوَىٰ عَلَى الْعَرْشِ. However, there is a natural sequence of events that prevail the earth and the whole of the universe. وَالسَّمَاءَ بَنَيْنَا بِأَيْدٍ وَإِنَّا لَمُوسِعُونَ. And the paradise, we have made it with hands, and we are constantly expanding it, the heavens. Why did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala use the plural here? Because He wants to clarify to the Meccans here absolutely that there is no notion of polytheism or association with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So even if all the other agencies that God has created are influential in the whole of the process of creation of the earth and the heavens, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has restricted it to Himself in order to emphasize that ultimately it was He Himself. But on top of that, for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to singularly attribute it to Himself and to single out Himself shows that He is taking a lot of pride in the creation of the heavens and the earth. It does seem that the human being does have a lot of value in the sight of God, and God is extremely invested within the human being and it's in the earth. Now, He then settled upon the throne, which means now He is controlling it. He is making everything earth and human centric. The amount of emphasis He is laying on this in this verse upon earth and human being is amazing, considering that there are billions of planetary systems and all of them could have life, or a lot of them could have life, might be even more advanced than the human beings. But for Him to emphasize in this way shows that He is taking a lot of pride. And from the Quran last week we are seeing that no human destiny is fixed. They are all in flux. And in some places Allah says for us to see who is right from who is wrong. So it appears that God is thoroughly invested within human life, because it's something very, very unique in the way we are thinking, in the way we are interacting, in the way we are reacting. Now, what Allah is explaining here in this verse is the meticulous order of the world. He's trying to tell us, look, everything is existing so phenomenally. And for anybody to say that this earth doesn't mean anything, they are wrong. Allah is taking great pride in creating this universe, and quite rightly. Allah says what we have created of the heavens is far greater than you in the Quran. And quite rightly, there should be a lot of pride being taken in the creation of the heavens and the earth. It is phenomenal. It's phenomenal. I can't believe that all of this would just get destroyed and become nothing. And if it does get destroyed, then it would be regenerated. Even if we are no longer on the face of this earth, the earth in itself is beyond any paradise. Look at the way it's been created. It needs to exist, and even if it is destroyed, it will only lead to a more greater earth, or give birth to another earth in some other galaxy or some other universe, or even in our own solar system. It might be regenerated. So now God settles on the throne. The reference to the throne is plentiful within the Quran. On the day of Qiyamah, God will be on the throne. The throne of God will be brought, and it will be huge. On that day, His throne will be carried by 8. We don't know the meaning of the throne. All we do know is that throne could be the central nervous system of the whole of this physical universe. And in that sense, it was something quite phenomenal. But, according to this verse, earth has been introduced within the system at a later date. It does appear that way. Allah is singling the earth out again and again. The heavens and the earth. He's talking about earth and earth's heavens on many occasions. So earth is being singled out. Maybe in the future we might come to an understanding that earth may not have been part of the solar system, but it was later on introduced through some cosmic event, through some planet bursting up. God knows what has happened. But something might have happened on earth, might be something very unique. This also brings us to the whole notion of evolution. Although we can see evolution in this world, but the Darwinian evolution cannot possibly explain the complexity that is out there. Nor with evolution at the most can only state to us that things arise from simplicity into complexities. That is something we see, and we build on past experiences and we grow through that. We can see that in evolution. But there is no way to say that people cannot introduce different components of existences within the already existing system. You see, as we will see in the verse that is going to come, that there is something far more complex going on. In any case, here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, يُخْشِ اللَّيْلَ النَّهَارِ يَطْلُبُهُ حَثِيثًا. He draws the night's cover over the day, which pursues it swiftly. The Meccan would never ever understand this. The rotation of the earth upon its own axis. It's me and you understand it. That one side of the earth always faces the sun. And it's always turning into darkness. And the darkness is constantly pursuing the light side. Constantly pursuing. Forget about the esoteric meanings of this. I'm just talking about the cosmological, physical meaning of this. The Meccan was never supposed to understand this. وَالشَّمْسُ وَالْقَمَرُ وَالنُّجُومُ مُسَخَّرَاتْ بِأَمْرِهِ. This again, it shows the sun, the moon, and the stars are subservient. It shows that they have a sense of self-consciousness. They are also living beings. But mechanically, they are in always a state of obedience. They are there. What this shows is that at least the moon, the sun, and the stars that this verse is talking about are there in order to govern the earth, to sustain the earth. And we do know now our cosmic connection with the rest of the galaxy and the rest of the universe. Any component going miss anywhere else, it will affect us immediately. So it does seem that earth has been introduced here through natural events as a component within a system that has been created and placed so meticulously in order so that the human being can then live on earth, and a phenomenal investment has been placed inside the human being to see where he will go. And that choice of human being, that unpredictable nature of human being, where he will go in itself, is phenomenal and worth its while to create all of this. You can imagine. And inshallah at some point we can go into the esoteric meanings of it as well. But the universe is a darkened place had it not been for an observer like me and you to give it its color and charm. So no matter how grand it is in itself, it is nothing until me and you are here. Allah lahul khalqu wal amr. Indeed, for Allah is the creation and the command. Now, the creation could be the creational world that is following the causative system, and amr is the non-material world which is instantaneous. Yes? Or it could be that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying that His is the command in the sense that be, and His is the process in which things come to pass. And therefore he's denying any form of shirk, even though at times he involves other agencies that he himself creates and places in place. But he is saying no, the absolute truth is that there is a monotheistic vision. There is one God, whether you look at him as singular God, or you look at him through his angels, or human beings, or other cosmic events. It's one truth. But I suppose it's most pertinent for the Quran to state this to the Meccans, whose minds are filled with polytheism. However, we need to remember one thing about the Quran, that it has to be true to its immediate audience, and it has to be true till the day of Qiyamah. ادعوا ربكم تضرعا وخفيا إنه لا يحب المعتدين. Supplicate your Lord beseechingly and secretly. Indeed, he does not like the transgressors. Now, I really don't know why, I haven't read why this verse was being revealed. But if you read this verse and the second one, it is giving us the whole notion of how to supplicate to God. And do not cause corruption on the earth, وَلَا تُفْسِدُوا فِي الْأَرْضِ بَعْدَ إِصْلَاحِهَا, after its restoration. وَادْعُوهُ خَوْفًا وَطَمَعًا, and supplicate him with fear and hope. إِنَّ رَحْمَةُ اللَّهِ, indeed Allah's mercy is close to the virtuous. قَرِيبٌ مِنَ الْمُحْسِنِينَ. Now, he's saying, maybe in the context of the verses that have gone before, 2 or 3 weeks ago, that the way to call Allah is not through nakedly going around the Kaaba, but it is to be, he is to be called existentially within yourself. So Allah is saying, beseechingly, make yourself in a position that there is no rest inside you, and you're beseeching God, and you're actually manifesting that through bodily actions, through hands, through gestures, through facial gestures, through a sense of hopelessness on your face, through a sense of hope on your face, and secretly calling from within your hearts. Maybe this verse is for them to that extent, but it is for us in a very existential manner, that if we were to call Allah, you see, worship, devotion is essence, because that relieves us from our ego, and we become as wholesome as the beloved, and that is a secret of life for us to grow and evolve. But this devotion has an essence as well, and that is supplication, because only through calling Allah do we acknowledge Him to be the Lord. And He said, Inna Rabbakumullah, your Lord is Allah, and for us to be slaves and dependent on God. So that is the essence of the essence. So now, call your Lord beseechingly and secretly. And Allah does not love the transgressors. What could it mean, transgressors? Could it mean here in this context any form of worship that is unbefitting, or any expression of worship that is unbefitting? Or does it mean that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will not accept the prayers of anybody who is transgressing, whatever transgression might mean? It could mean both. Do not transgress in the manifestation of worship by doing worship which is inappropriate, and if you are supplicating to God, then God's response will not be forthcoming if you are transgressors in any aspect of your life. And do not cause corruption on the land after its restoration. Now this is obviously in Makkah. So what it probably means is that after the restoration of the earth from when it was destroyed previously through the qiyam of other people, or it was destroyed at the time of the floods of Nabi Nuh. It means there is certain point of reference here that either the Meccans understood or they didn't understand, but we do not understand. Well, I don't understand it at all. وَدَعُوهُ خَوْفًا وَطَمَعًا, call on to Him in fear and in hope. Now, besieging God and silently supplicating to God, when people started shouting Allahu Akbar, La ilaha illallah, the Prophet said, your God is near. You don't have to shout. Yes? Call Him calmly. And with fear and hope, with hope. Now these are the attitudes that we ought to have with God, because He is an absolute authority, and we are to be left on knife's edge. I am hopeful that Allah will not let me down. I am fearful, what if He decides not to accept? Which gives absolute authority to God, because I am at His mercy totally. And this then would be the exact and the absolute expression of devotion to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, helplessness and slavery to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and being a subject of God. And I suppose that would be therefore the highest extension of surrender in Islam. I'm hopeful, I'm fearful. You can decide whatever you want. You don't need any cause from me. You have the absolute authority. 2, that is a psychological state. 2, it's an existential state as well. That if we were to arrive in the state by calling God, besieging God, and talking to Him secretly, calling Him with that fine balance of hope and fear, then we would be able to open the doors of destiny in this Mother Earth of ours, and the earth will yield to us. And we find evidence of that, and we've discussed it in when we were talking about the mother of Mary and others. We can inshallah go back there. And Allah is very, very close to the good doers. So again, Allah does not love the transgressors. Allah is close to the good doers. So if supplication has to be accepted existentially, stay away from transgression and be amongst those who do good, and then the supplication begins to be responded to. The next verse again is talking about the existential properties that are there, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is now singularly claiming Himself to be the full author of creation, of responding to His servants when they call on to Him, and the one who has put every single factor of existence into place. If we look at this verse, هو الذي يرسل الرياح بشرا بين يدي رحمته حتى إذا أقلت سحابا ثقالا سقناه لبلد ميت فأنزلنا به الماء فأخرجنا به من كل الثمرات كذلك نخرج الموتى لعلكم تذكرون. He is one, it is He who sends forth the winds as harbingers of His mercy. When they bear rain-laden clouds, we drive them towards a dead land and send it down and send down water on it, and with it we bring forth all kinds of crops. Thus shall we raise the dead. Maybe you will take admonition. Now here, of course, he's talking about we, he and we. So he is now talking about himself solitarily, and we through the working of the angelic sort of realms and the dynamics that are there, of causative dynamics that are there within the earth. But the fact is that he is taking credit for it himself, so that the Meccan mind knows it's only Allah. It's only Allah. We cannot be distracted. We can't go to anybody else. And at the same time, for us in this century, it is there for us to learn that no, there is a singular source for all of this, and it's a beautiful source. However, there is another clue that God puts in here, that we will take out the dead in a similar fashion. So what he's saying is that the crops die, rains come on it, they become alive again. We notice this. We notice that water brings life with it upon the land, but we don't know the meaning of life. So Allah is saying through water we create life. We have made everything living through water. It is possible that the future human might be able to create life in human beings, or restore dead human beings back to life, or bring out new human beings to life, so on and so forth. But I'm not sure if the future human being will understand what is the meaning of life, or will be able to create life. All they will be able to do is see the connection between certain factors and coming of life. It is as if life is surrounding the whole of the universe or whole of the earth. We just have to put certain components together and the life awakens in that particular subject. But we don't know how it comes or what the meaning of awakening is. The next verse is an esoteric meaning and an exoteric meaning. The good land, its vegetation comes out by the permission of its Lord. And as for that which is bad, it does not come out except sparsely. Thus do we paraphrase the signs variously for a people who give thanks. What we see from here is that the same water is arriving on different parts of lands on the earth. Some produce excessively, the others sparingly, or if they produce, it's not good product. Similarly, God is saying in the human heart, because on that hadith in which the Amir al-Mu'mineen says in Imam Sadiq that God took different types of earth and mixed them, and then he said, I will take the one out of the other and separate them both. What this means is that guidance may come upon hearts. In some hearts it will yield phenomenally. In other hearts it will yield very sparingly, or it will be counterproductive. It will actually produce regressive souls. Just as when rain comes on certain land which is not good, it will produce a lot of weed, and some will produce a lot of good vegetation. And both are essential and necessary, and both are parts of this world. And similarly, he's talking about the human hearts. That human hearts, similarly, due to the material constitution of this earth, are no different. When guidance comes, it can either yield, may not yield, or may yield in the reverse. وصلى الله على محمد وآله الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. We continue from where we had left off. Now here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in the verses that are to follow, He's talking about the stories of the prophets that were sent to guide mankind, the objections that people had, and the chastisement that overtook them, and the conversations of those prophets that are revealing to an extent of their psychology. The prophet with whom Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala starts is Nabi Nuh, possibly to mean that prior to Nabi Nuh there weren't any forms of natural disasters or chastisement that had taken over the people on the face of this earth. Now, in terms of the story of Nabi Nuh, the floods are not only a story shared by the Abrahamic faith, but the Hindu tradition also mentions the great floods. The Chinese traditions also mention the great floods. The Sumerian writings also talk about the great floods. And of course, in many mythologies, the great floods are there. So it seems as if this is something that had occurred physically on the face of this earth. What we want to try and understand is the psychology that is here and the nature of these chastisements, because a very different story appears from the verses that are to follow than the one that we normally understand in terms of human corruption and chastisement. It is not as if the corruption is bringing chastisement, which is also the case at times. It is as if chastisement is not a chastisement, it's a natural event, and then there is intervention by God, and people who are not following God at that point are then destroyed by those natural events, and then it is termed as chastisement. It's quite interesting to interpret it in that way. In any case, we start from verse 59. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. لَقَدْ أَرْسَلْنَا نُوحًا إِلَىٰ قَوْمِهِ فَقَالَ يَا قَوْمِ اعْبُدُوا اللَّهَ مَا لَكُم مِّنْ إِلَٰهٍ غَيْرُهُ إِنِّي أَخَافُ عَلَيْكُمْ عَذَابَ يَوْمٍ عَظِيمٍ. Indeed, we sent Nuh to his people. Now, Nuh was in his people. What is the meaning of we sent Nuh to his people? You see, Nuh existed with his people for many, many, many years. And Allah is saying, we sent Nuh to his people. What it means is that Nabi Nuh was not a messenger. Then he was authorized as a messenger after certain processes that took place within Nabi Nuh when he became eligible to receive that particular message, or he was eligible, maybe not quite, and he was made fully eligible because he was chosen. And now, but I don't know whether Nabi Nuh was chosen eternally, or there the decision was making that Nuh will be the next messenger. Now, we asked ourselves, why was Nabi Nuh all of a sudden chosen and sent to his people? I mean, he is there, now he is being told, you're a messenger, go to these people and tell them what they're doing is wrong, and tell them that there is something grand coming to pass. You see, what appears here is that Prophet had said, Allah had said in the story of Adam, that my prophets will come to you. But we don't know that are those prophets already chosen in eternity, or that God has already put in an agenda that the prophets will come. We will choose as and how, and He knows in eternity as to who they will be. But then there is also a process of uncertainty as to when he will be picked, or who will be picked, or change of mind, or change of destiny, and course on and so forth, as we find in the story of Ismail, the son of Imam Sadiq, that he said there's a great bada that has occurred. In any case, Nabi Nuh is sent in the sense that he is chosen. And now, not as Nuh, but as an emissary of God, he's been sent. He says to his people, worship Allah. You do not have a God other than Him. I fear upon you the chastisement of a grand day. Yawmun Azim is a term that is used for the day of Qiyamah. So it is, the floods that were going to come was something grand that would wipe out so much of existence on the face of the earth. And hence he is saying, I ask you to be warned, to take caution from a grand chastisement. Now what appears here is, as Nabi Nuh will say in a little while, that I know from God what you don't know, that natural sequences were that there was going to be a big flood, huge flood. Maybe because a huge ice cap had fallen into the ocean that had raised the waters many thousands of miles away, that was creating great floods and changing the ecology and the weather system. Nabi Nuh from Allah was informed that this is what's going to happen. Within a matter of 50 years, all of these ecological changes will impact you. The whole of this place will be drowned. Now, how do you escape from that? It's quite intriguing that if you worship Allah, there's two possible interpretations that comes to my mind. If you worship one God, then I will give you salvation and I will rescue you. Or if you worship one God and start praying, then your prayers will influence the events that unfold in this world, and your piece of land or whatever it is may be saved from being drowned. Either or. Yes? In any case, he is preaching to them. They do not listen to him. Their response is Qal al-Malau. So what it means is that the prophets are sent as a form of intervention. You see, the floods are going to come regardless of Nabi Nuh telling them or not. So it appears from this verse at least that the adab of the people of Nuh was not particularly because they had procured adab due to their sins, but the adab was an existential event coming to pass. And Nabi Nuh was telling them that you can avert this either by turning to one God who can then influence, that belief can then influence the natural course of events within this world and you can be saved, or that I can take you aboard the ark and save you. It seems as if the first one is more accurate interpretation, because the ark was a later option when Nuh failed to preach to them. Then he was told now build an ark. Yes? So the prophet here is an intervention from God. Look, oh gosh, the great floods are going to come. They are all going to be drowned. This is Nuh. He is most appropriate to go and warn them. Worship Allah, otherwise you're going to be destroyed. So it's a role of intervention. قال الملأ من قومه إنا نراك في ضلال بعيد. The chiefs, the elite They said from his people, they said to him, we see you in manifest error. You will always find in any community that the majority of the people are led by a minority group of people. If the Quran's message was to everybody, and everybody was awoken to the message of the Quran, and hence the success of Rasulullah, it wasn't the chiefs, but normally in any community, we find that the community becomes irrational because the chiefs are invested in a particular vision. The heads of the community, the loudmouths, the few family, they are invested in a vision. And the majority of the people, through their insecurities, suspend their sense of judgment. So here again, we're finding that not the common men are interacting with, no, it's the elite who are telling them, oh, you're in manifest error, and then the common people just follow the elite. If only we could awaken to this truth that in our communities the same thing is happening, that few families decide the fate of the community and majority just follow them through insecurity. قال يا قومي ليس بضلالة ولكني رسول من رب العالمين. He said, oh my people, I am not in error. Rather, I'm a messenger from the Lord of the worlds. So here Nuh has been blessed with that insight where he can see him as the Rabb al-Alamin. أُبَلِّغُكُمْ رِسَالَاتِ رَبِّي. I communicate to you the messages of my Lord. وَأَنْصَحُ لَكُمْ. And I'm a well-wisher. Look, I mean you no harm. I'm only telling you to worship Allah, otherwise a big thing is coming to happen to you. What am I gaining from it? وَعَلَمُ مِنَ اللَّهِ مَا لَا تَعْلَمُونَ. I know from Allah what you don't know. I know these great floods are going to come. You don't know because you can't see that far. You can't have that wholesome outlook. I do. This is one thing about the prophets. The prophets always make rational arguments. But in addition to the rational arguments, they also have a wholesome vision in which they know and they see and they understand what we do not understand. So they call on to two types of authority. One is authority based on reason, the other is authority based on knowledge. And this is what Allah says to the angels, that look, I know what you do not know about this Adam. But still Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala then responds to them in a rational manner. So it shows that the authority that is gained, that is expected on the basis of knowledge, is always within the Quran and even by God supplemented through rational arguments. So if in today's world a man says, I know, and you do not know because I've studied for 70 years, it means nothing until and unless they rationally engage. Because if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying to the angels, I know what you don't know, and still engages with them rationally, and the prophets engage with people rationally, despite their knowledge base, then who is other than Allah and their prophet and his prophets? أَوْ عَجِبْتُمْ أَنْ جَاءَكُمْ ذِكْرٌ مِّن رَبِّكُمْ عَلَى رَجُلٍ مِّنْكُمْ لَيُنذِرَكُمْ وَلِتَتَّقُوا وَلَعَلَّكُمْ تُرْحَمُونَ. Do you consider it odd that a reminder from your Lord should come to you through a man from among yourselves to warn you, so that you may be God-wary and so that you may receive His mercy? Now, what happens normally is when you're just a man. But what Nabi Nuh is saying, I might be just a man. So what? If Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is sending me to you, yes, why should there be a great cosmic event and an angel coming to tell you otherwise? What I'm talking to you is rationally based. Does it make sense or not? If it makes sense, what difference does it make whether an angel says that to you or a human being says that to you? The word of the argument is in its rationality. This is what Nabi Nuh is saying. You don't have to have a big turban or a big beard. Reason is reason, for crying out loud. But they denied him. فَكَذَّبُوهُ. So we delivered him. فَأَنْجَيْنَاهُ وَالَّذِينَ مَعَهُ فِي الْفُلْكِ وَأَغْرَقْنَا الَّذِينَ كَذَّبُوا بِآيَاتِنَا إِنَّهُمْ كَانُوا قَوْمًا عَمِينَ. Now what appears here is that had they actually turned to Allah, there might have been an intervention in the sense that the floods could have been averted from that region. However, they denied him, so we delivered him. So now the intervention takes place and an ark is being built. And those who were with him in the ark, and we drowned those who denied our signs, indeed they were a blind lot. So here now, this great flood is coming regardless of your sins. The intervention is believe in God. If you believe in God, either the danger will be averted through your prayers and God's intervention in a very big scale, or If you do not pray, then those of the people who turn to God, they will be given salvation through an ark, and the latter one became true. Otherwise, if they had all believed, it could have been possible to avert the flood in any case, because Nuh could not have possibly taken all those people aboard his ark. وَإِلَىٰ عَادٍ أَخَاهُمْ هُودٍ. And to the people of Ad, who comes after Nabi Nuh, is their brother Hud. Now it could be that because they had this sort of an understanding in their communal life that they were all equals and they were brother-like, and they shared this proximity with each other, not that they were brothers from the same parents. It could be that they were from one family, those tribes initially, but it means more so in their own interaction. They were like brothers interacting, and they called themselves brothers. قَالَ يَا قَوْمِ اعْبُدُوا اللَّهَ مَا لَكُم مِّنْ إِلَٰهٍ غَيْرُهُ أَفَلَا تَتَّقُونَ. He says the same thing. O my people, worship Allah. There is no God other than Him. Will you not then be wary of God? قال الملأ الذين كفروا من قومه إنا لنراك في سفاهة وإنا لنظنك من الكاذبين. Again, the elite of his people who were faithless said, indeed we see you to be in folly, and indeed we consider you to be a liar. Now, we consider you to be weak of mind, and we consider you to be a liar. You don't have all the knowledge base and so on and so forth. You see, again, they did not listen to reason. They were going on their presumed sort of understanding of who is a person who has a right to dictate. But they were not listening to reason. And again, there were very few who were determining the destiny of the majority. And the majority only suffers at the hands of the wickedness of the few is because they hand over the sense of reasoning. They suspend it and they follow the few. Just because somebody has a big beard or a big turban, whichever color it is, doesn't mean they are right. Reason prevails over all things. This is how Quran is talking. The elite, again, are contending against Hud. And they are not saying to Hud, look, these are the arguments, our counter-arguments. They are saying, you know what, you're weak of intellect and you're a liar, you're misguided. They don't have any argument. And the foolish laity follows this elite and suffer the consequence. And this is exactly what's happening in today's world. Everywhere in the world, this is exactly what is happening. In every little community, this is what is happening. Nobody is immune to this. In any case, Hud says, قَالَ يَا قَوْمِ لَيْسَ بِسَفَاهَةٍ وَلَكِنِّي رَسُولٌ مِّن رَبِّ الْعَالَمِينَ. I don't have weakness of mind, believe me. I am a messenger from the Lord of the worlds. The same words Nabi Nuh has been saying. أُبَلِّغُكُمْ رِسَالَاتِ رَبِّي. I communicate to you the messages of my Lord, exactly in the same tone that Nabi Nuh said. وَأَنَا لَكُمْ نَاصِحٌ أَمِينٌ. I have nothing to gain from you, and I am a trustworthy well-wisher for you. You have seen me in my life with you that I've always been a trustworthy person. I've never lied, I've never cheated, I have never ever committed a crime. Today, when I'm telling you something based on reason that this is the truth, why do you deny it? And this is exactly what happens in every community. The right people who have never lied, who have never stolen, who have never done anything wrong, when they say something good, but because the elite can't make sense of it because they're so invested in a vision, they are the ones who object. أَوَعَجِبْتُمْ مَنْ جَاءَكُمْ ذِكْرٌ مِّن رَبِّكُمْ عَلَىٰ رَجُلٍ مِّنْكُمْ لَيُنذِرَكُمْ وَاذْكُرُوا. He says, same thing that Nabi Nuh said. Do you consider it odd that there should come to you a reminder from your Lord through a man from among yourselves, so that he may warn you? What difference does it make whether it's a man amongst yourself or an angel or a great being that comes and tells you? If it is rationally based, the validity of the argument is in its rationality, not in the one who says it. Then he is appealing to their different side because they already have certain knowledge base of what had happened. And he says, وَاذْكُرُوا إِذْ جَعَلَكُمْ خُلَفَاءَ مِنْ بَعْدِ قَوْمِ نُوحٍ. Remember when he made you successors after the people of Nuh, because his people already had those historical teachings that they were passing by word of mouth, that there was Nabi Nuh, there were great floods, and then we came after him from the progeny of Nabi Nuh, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us so much. وَزَادَكُمْ فِي الْخَلْقِ بَسْطًا. And he increased you vastly in creation. It is said that these people were giant-like people, and of course we also have these texts that there were giant-like people who roamed upon the earth. Well, this verse seems to be confirming that these people were created, they had very, very big postures, bigger than others. فَاذْكُرُوا عَلَىٰ Allah. They were very prosperous people in terms of the sort of things that they had, agricultural systems and so on and so forth. But of course, according to our history, the Sumerians were the first ones and so on and so forth. But this Hud and Saleh seem to be preceding before 5,000, maybe even 10,000, that are called the civilizations that we don't know anything about. But in any case, it seems that this Quran is unraveling many things that we, jigsaw puzzles, pieces of the jigsaw that we are missing in our understanding of the world and the progression and evolution of human life. In any case, فَاذْكُرُوا عَلَىٰ اللَّهِ لَعَلَّكُمْ تُفْلَحُونَ. Now remember the bounties of Allah so that you may be successful. Once you say, oh yeah, Allah destroyed them, and this is how He bestowed upon us, His hope was that He can bring them out of polytheism into monotheism. And of course, He was also seeing that a great physical, natural event is going to come to pass. And if they start believing in God, then at least I can deliver them from that village, or the village can be safeguarded and the adab can be averted from that region. So it seems as if Hud again is an intervention from God to save people. قالوا وجئتنا لنعبد الله وحده ونذر ما كان يعبد آباؤنا. They said, the elite, have you come to tell us that we should worship Allah alone and abandon what our forefathers have been worshipping? So you see, again, the argument is not valid. It's not a rational argument. It's just because these, beards and turbans have been telling us to do this, should we just stop whatever they've been telling us? Because you're saying this. But what Hud is saying is, look, I'm not telling you anything. I'm just giving you a rational argument. Allah, you yourself are saying that Allah destroyed them. Allah saved you. Allah gave you this. So now why have you transgressed? There is something mighty going to happen to you. I'm here to communicate that to you and to save you if you act in time. In any case, these elites said, فَأْتِنَا بِمَا تَعِدُنَا إِن كُنْتَ مِنَ الصَّادِقِينَ. Then bring us what you threaten us with, should you be truthful. They're very, very obstinate. قَالَ قَدْ وَقَعَ عَلَيْكُمْ مِنْ رَبِّكُمْ رِجْسٌ وَغَضَبٌ. He said, there has become due against you a punishment and wrath from your Lord. The word rijz in the Quran is always used to depict physical form of chastisements upon the earth that are through natural events and causes. And it can also be talking about physical filth, into physical properties that are considered filth in accordance with the human soul. So there is an interaction. There's an interaction of the act of the human soul and its response by the natural world. So now the adab is coming and you people are procuring it fully. You cannot be delivered, so you will be taken by it. And His wrath. In one hadith, the Imam says that Allah does not feel anger and happiness, so He has creations that feel anger and happiness on His behalf. And that could maybe alluding to some of the times when God uses the pronoun we as His agencies. But it's a very deep meaning that has to be unraveled very properly and very sensitively. أَتُجَادِلُونَنِي فِي أَسْمَاءٍ سَمَّيْتُمُوهَا أَنْتُمْ وَآبَاؤُكُمْ مَا نَزَلَ اللَّهُ بِهَا مِنْ سُلْطَانٍ فَانْتَظِرُوا إِنِّي مَعَكُمْ مِنَ الْمُنْتَظِرِينَ. He says, do you contend with me regarding names that you and your forefathers have named? Because the other verses in Surah Nuh, in other places, they also have gods that they were naming, variety of different gods. Su'a and Nasr in the case of Nabi Nuh and other. So he says, do you contend against me in terms of these names? Yes? And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has not given you any authority. Now, in all possibility, when the verses of the Quran say to the angels, did they worship you? The angels said, glory be to you. They worshipped the jinn, not us. So in all possibility, these people did see at that point beings, and they imagined them to be the Lord of rain and the Lord of crop and the Lord of air and the Lord of light, so on and so forth. But the prophets always gave rational arguments that they are not lords. Only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the Lord. You can see a particular system, if there were a variety of different lords, they would be contending against each other. How could they get it so right, so meticulously? Yes? So whatever their forefathers had named might have had certain real references that then got out of hand or were misinterpreted. In any case, Nabi says to them, then so wait. I too wait along with you, because he knew now this thing is on its way. So now the story here is that Hud did not go suddenly one day and warn them. He did not get enlightened. He got, and then because they weren't good people, they procured the adab. From these verses, it seems at least, that the adab was on its way as a natural event. Hud awoke in a prophetic manner, goes to them, says to them, become believers. Had they become believers, Hud had one of two choices. Either pray to God for God to avert the punishment, for the Mother Earth to then recarve the destiny, or for him to deliver them. It seems that had they become believers in God, the punishment would have been averted altogether. In fact, it wasn't punishment, it was a natural event. The natural event would have been averted altogether. But because they didn't turn to God, the Prophet was forced to exit from the village with his few that he took with him. And the rest were then punished. And then it became a punishment because they were caught up in that natural event due to their obstinate nature and due to their sin. So it wasn't a punishment initially. It was a natural event which then transpired as a punishment, and these distinctions are very, very useful. فَأَنْجَيْنَاهُ وَالَّذِينَ مَعَهُ بِرَحْمَةٍ مِنَّا. Then we delivered him and those who were with him by mercy from us. Here, the plural is used because the angels might have gone to the Prophet and said to him, okay, come with us from this exit, from this route. And the people who were with him, through mercy from us, وَقَطَّعْنَا دَابِرَ الَّذِينَ كَذَّبُوا بِآيَاتِنَا وَمَا كَانُوا مُؤْمِنِينَ. And we rooted out those who denied our signs and were not faithful. Rooted out means that they had left no progeny. Every single trace of them had gone. Now, it obviously means that even the young from those people and their children and babies were also taken. Not to say that those babies and those young were sinful. Not to say that they will go to hell. But it just shows how this nature is working. It's amazing. The child had no sin. But this is the way that nature works. When floods come, little insects, they all get killed. In that way, we are no different from nature. Now, in one sense, the little ones suffer the destiny of the elder ones. In the other sense, in terms of salvation and damnation, the little ones did not suffer the destiny of the elders. But the lay, who were not using their minds, suffered the destiny both in this world and in the hereafter of the elite. In this world by being crushed through the chastisement of God, in the next one through damnation. So you can see here how complex the whole situation is. وصلى الله على محمد وعلى الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين.